Here we are live with the PT, his IQ with the BQ. He's the Ben Quist, the one and only Dr. Ben with his insights on life, love, family, health, living span. You name it, you got questions, he's got answers. He's the one and only Ben Quist.
Thanks for that wonderful intro, Jack. Thank you so
You
much for that.
you earned it, baby.
Yeah.
What's going on in the world of Dr. Ben and health?
Well, we have our spring speaker series at Form and Fitness, which is something we do every year. And this year we really have some great speakers. It's just been really cool. We had a private chef and educator, Britta Kramer, speak last night, and she did a great job talking about how food influences your mood, which was kind of an interesting topic.
Huh.
And then we had the cardiologist speak, Josh Liberman. Did also kind of knock that out of the park, and then we had one. You know her, Melanie Plant,
Yes.
nurse practitioner. I think
Yep.
she spoke on
She's
menopause.
yeah, a PA
Was
visit.
she was PA? Okay, I knew
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
either PA or nurse practitioner. So
Yeah.
she did a great job. So we got two more speakers coming up. So I'm going to be speaking on the inflammatory index of food. Now that
Oh.
might sound boring, but it's actually kind of fascinating because I don't take anything for granted. Like I'm worried that I want to know how they form this index. Like what is the research that really went behind saying one food's inflammatory and another one isn't? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
So
my entire class is delving into that.
there actually is an index in existence. This isn't a Ben Quist creation. There's one in
No, no,
existence.
nope.
Oh,
There is an inflammatory index of food. So, and it was formed by the big brains. The big brain, researcher people came up with this, but just because they came up with it doesn't mean it's right.
well,
So,
that's a big red flag for you. Whenever you see that, you're on the case, man. You don't take, like you said, you don't take anything for granted. Just the opposite. Your
no,
your
no,
your
no,
your bullshit meter gets set off by something like that.
it does. You gotta look at it because it's so weird. With inflammation, there's like these two different schools of thought where obviously the inflammatory index is very plant friendly, meaning that mostly plants are on that unprocessed plant food is according to the index, is very anti-inflammatory. But
Mm-hmm.
then any food high in saturated fat, animal proteins, dairy, is high on the inflammatory index. So is that really true, or is it not true? Because there it. So, anyways, it'll be an interesting. I'm going through all of the research, and I have some ideas in my head, but
No.
anything. I'll be presenting my findings at my talk.
What is the date of your talk, Ben?
I'm going to probably do the last Thursday in April. We haven't determined it yet, so I'm going to
Okay.
send that out
That's
first week of
okay. That
April.
looks like if it's the last Thursday in April, that'll be April 24th.
April
That's the
24th.
last one.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. That'll be when it
Okay.
is. So yeah,
Okay.
no, I've been wanting to do this for a long time because I see so many of these things, where people say, like, oh, you should eat all meat and like ketogenic and really blah blah blah. And they're like, then you look at the research and maybe it supports it, maybe it doesn't. And one of the most fascinating things is something that the cardiologist had mentioned, and this is really true that many people when they get an idea in their head like, I really like to eat bacon. So then they go and they start to Google like, is eating bacon good for you? And then like they'll see some things pop up. Then they'll start to look into research. Is there any research study that says bacon's good for you? And they'll try to support their bias, with research, with rather than just kind of going at it a little bit more open ended. Um, and that can be problematic. You can almost find research to support anything. Um, so
Okay, Ben.
it's
Ben, could you move your? You might have to move just a little closer.
sure. Do you hear me?
Yes, better.
Okay,
No
gotcha.
problem.
Sorry.
Just clarity. Well, it's funny. Uh, Benjamin Disraeli, the famous English prime minister back in the 1800s, had a
Hmm.
saying. It was, "There are lies, damn lies, and statistics." In other words, you can bend statistics. You can find statistics to back almost anything you want. So you
Sure.
have to be careful with that. I mean, as long
Yes.
as, where are you getting them? Who's digging them up? Have both sides been looked at?
Yep.
These are all things to ask yourself when you see stats, because stats, justify things, like numbers
Yep.
justify things, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you have to be very, just you don't have to discount them, just prove them, just make sure that they're right instead
Yeah,
of,
no,
you know,
and that really Jeremiah and I want to do an entire video on this, but how do you really determine what the truth is? And sometimes you can't, so but when you're looking at something like the question of like how much meat should an average human being consume, you know, you really need to try to dig up all the research supporting meat consumption, but then all the research not supporting meat consumption. You got to look at both of it, all the stuff. But then you have to look. You got to go talk to some of the experts who are dealing with patients that are eating one way or another, and then see what's happening with their disease processes. How many cancers are the one group getting? How many heart attacks or strokes is one group getting? So that you get some information that way, and then finally you really have to look at how the approach. Are there markers you can look at in your own body that will let you know how is that approach helping or hurting you? So if you start to eat a lot of meat and you notice your inflammatory markers going up or your blood sugar control markers getting bad, then maybe that's not the diet for you, or vice versa. If you start to eat a lot of whole food plant-based stuff and things start to go haywire, then it. So, anyways, it's an interesting question, especially when it comes to eating.
It is, and that you said the key thing there to me at the end is, what about you? Just these stats might even be true, but you yourself, how does it apply to you as an individual, unique person who has nobody else in the world has the same body constitution that you have?
Right.
And so you have to take that into consideration. I don't know how you do that without getting some expert advice, which of these talks are about. It also relates to training, individual training. I was talking to my son, who's lives in San Diego. He's got a personal trainer, and he said it just makes so much difference because he knows what's right for me. What I shouldn't be doing, not only what I want to accomplish. And I'm the biggest offender. I'll see a Men's Health magazine or something saying plyometrics are the best thing. I'm not saying that it's not, but I go, oh God, now I got to start jumping on boxes. But I go, wait a minute, is this the best thing? Is this the best thing for me? So having, whether it's food, whether it's health and physical training, having someone who knows you and can help you apply what statistics are important for you, I think is really important.
Yeah, I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. And I do feel like a lot of people some people are getting their information and their advice from like Instagram or, these people may be very charismatic. They may be very well spoken, and, they may be putting stuff out there, but really, the old standbys of still going to a physician or a cardiologist or a physical therapist or a certified personal trainer, all those things are still, experts that work with tons of people in the field, that has some importance as well. When you have like, I've worked with thousands of customers, in rehab or in fitness or in diet. You start to see patterns. You start to see what works for broad swaths of people, and that's still an important thing. It's going to an expert, like you said, there's some really good benefits to that.
Right. Yeah, and you say about influencers, or I know Margot follows some, and these people are shredded. And then they look great and it works for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But I mean, usually in general have some good principles, and usually if it's not crazy wacko stuff where you think that doesn't make any sense. But still, you just have to apply it to yourself in your own life and your own, what your goals are and what your capabilities are and where you are in life.
Yep. And sometimes, I mean, if you're not in, the field of human performance, you might not know what is right for a 65-year-old person versus a 20-year-old person. Like you said, like you probably shouldn't be doing any jumping stuff, or very minimal jumping, or jumping, on a mat, or not that I'm saying you can't do it. It's just that as your body change, like jumping becomes something that may or may not be good for you. So
right on a soft box or something, if you're going to do something and step down, something, it can all be modified.
Yeah, or jumping at 50% of max versus like really trying to hit a max jump, jumping on concrete, or totally. So But
Yep.
yeah, so that's always something that interests me is delving into trying to figure out what the truth is about some of these things, especially nutrition. Nutrition's always been my favorite. So
Yeah. Really? I didn't know that. All right.
it's always a good one.
Do you have time for a couple questions
Sure,
of
yes, I do.
timely trending things? The one that I see everywhere this time of year is daylight savings
Hmm.
and how much it affects the body, it affects your sleep, so then it affects your diet. What do you have, Ben, any advice on how to deal with or get yourself? I mean, no matter how much you complain about it, we have to deal with it. It's still here.
Yep,
They're
yep.
still doing it. So, given that we have to deal with it, do you have any tips or advice to people who are having trouble adjust to it or feel tired or anything like that? Or do you think that's mental? What's your take on the whole daylight savings thing?
I think it's disruptive to your sleep cycle. When you read the stuff, from sleep scientists and whatnot, they definitely believe having regularity is probably the biggest key. So like that same going to bed time, same waking up time every day is really really helpful, especially if it maps out to when the daily kind of cycle of light and darkness happens. Obviously, the body kind of thrives on that, and it's designed to be that way. So, yeah, I feel like it's very disruptive. You know, the way I handle it is I usually try to just kind of edge my bedtime, depending if you're springing forward or falling back, whatever. I just try to make small incremental. I go to bed a little bit earlier, depending on which one it is, and I try to, wean myself into the new timing. But yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. I wish we didn't have it.
Yeah, yeah. Do your kids? You have kids. Do they have trouble adjusting as well? Do you try and nudge them and kind of get
Yeah,
their schedules going so they adapt a little better as well?
100%. Yeah. So, depending again if it's spring forward or fall back, we'll adjust bedtimes a little bit.
Yeah.
Either forcing them to stay up a little bit later or making them go to bed a little bit, sooner. Depending. But yeah, I mean, usually your body obviously naturally adjusts through over a little bit of time, but I just think it's an unnecessary disruption. And so yeah, I'd be a fan of eliminating it, but I know that the stats on that are about 50-50. 50% of people like it and 50% of people hate it. So it's like, it's going to probably be something that's going to stay.
It's good luck then, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, yeah, yeah. Is there one that's more disruptive than not? Fall or spring? Do you find, or are they equally?
I always hate spring forward, like where you lose an hour, right? I like it when it falls back and you get the extra hour of sleep, so that's my personal preference. But, like, yeah, I
It,
don't really have an
it,
opinion on that, but
it's like I think baseball gets. I mean, people like baseball, but I think one of the reasons it's so romanticized is it falls at the time of year when the weather's getting better too. As opposed to
yeah,
football is the. I mean, that helps people think, oh, it's wonderful. Oh, it's that. Days are getting longer. All that kind of good stuff.
sure.
Um, Now, for napping, do you, if you nap, Ben, should when
Mhm.
you say keep your sleep patterns the same, should you nap at the same time or try to every day if you nap?
So, I've read a lot on that, and it seems that like if you are getting the research that I have read, if you are getting a kind of correct amount of sleep and you are getting, your sleeping patterns are good, then a short nap seems to be helpful. But individuals that are getting crappy sleep and that are taking these longer naps, during like an hour plus type naps, that usually doesn't equate to better health. But it's really hard to ferret out whether it's the fact that are having crappy sleep to begin with, and then
Hmm.
the nap, you know what I mean? Like they're already kind of wrecking things by not sleeping appropriately.
Yep.
So like I'm a big fan of like a little short 20 minute, 10-minute, 15-minute nap each day. I just think it's and the research supports that. If you're getting a good sleep cycle, that's like a healthy practice. For individuals to do.
Yep.
I've never really looked into whether it should be the exact same time of day. It typically falls at the same time of day for me. If I'm usually, in the afternoon, like, mid afternoon,
Yep.
lay back in my work chair and just take a moment,
Yep. Yeah.
But,
It's interesting you say that because I read also that even if you don't fall asleep, if you close your eyes and kind of
mhm.
think you're shutting yourself down for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that has benefits as well. You wouldn't think so, but that also has some benefits that help.
Yeah, it's restorative time, right? So
Yeah.
you're taking a moment to kind of restore and build back your resiliency,
Hmm.
versus, go, 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 push, push, push. The body does need breaks from that, so, and that's something I'm a type A personality. So that's sometimes hard,
No.
but it's something that I've learned over time is you just have to let it go and you have to take some time to just relax for a moment, otherwise
Yep.
bad things happen, so
Yeah. Otherwise, you will do yourself in, I think.
yep,
Okay.
yep,
Cool. All right. I have some good news for you, in
yeah.
that we mentioned Melanie. She is now my physician that I see on a regular basis. I went in for my first, as at last time we spoke, I was going in
Hmm.
for my first checkup with her since you and I talked about heart scans again, and you gave me the so I'm getting a heart scan done, and she's like, I believe in those. That's absolutely. So she's got referred. She's referring me to a thing. We're getting it done.
Good.
So there, Ben. You think I never listened to you, but there you go. I do. I still like cereal. I don't eat it, but I still like it. I can't get it out of my system. But I am getting a heart scan
No,
though.
that's
So
absolutely great. And I, again, even perusing the media this morning, like they were like, what is the most important stat you should be looking at for your health? Like it's like, and then you look at it and it's some dumb thing that's totally irrelevant and doesn't really matter. And it's like, who's writing these articles? Like, you know, if just, again, to hammer that point home about the heart scan or calcium scan, the number one thing that is likely to kill you if you're past the age of 40, hands down, is a heart attack, stroke. So something heart disease related. So wouldn't it be the most wise stat or thing you could look at in your body is whether you have heart disease or not? And that's what a calcium scan or a heart scan measures. So it is the most predictive test that there is of whether you will have a heart attack or a stroke. So why the medical community is not forcing everybody to get these at age 40 or 50, I have no idea. You're going to get me going on a rant about how they shove tubes up your butt and do all their kind of squish your boobs and thing, and those cancers don't kill even a fraction of what heart disease does. And any practitioner, if anybody tells you that a heart scan isn't a good predictive measure of whether or not you have heart disease and you might have a problem, that practitioner has not read the research and is 20 years behind the times. So you should probably look for a different one. So I'm glad that Melanie was like, yes, go get that done, because it's like it actually frightens me when general practitioners or PAs or nurse practitioners are like, oh well, I don't know, your cholesterol's fine, like you don't need a heart scan. Like that's
yeah.
like that just reeks of like you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? So
Yes. Yep. Yep. It's time to.
I'm so glad you're getting that done, Jack, and I hope it's
Yep.
zero.
Me too. But if it isn't, I'll know.
But
Then
yeah,
I got to deal with it.
100%. And it's almost sometimes a blessing to get something like that done. I have a friend who I forced to get one, and his came back really, really bad. So it was like, oh my God. But the way I framed it for him is that this is a wake up call or an opportunity to change things in your life that are only going to make everything better. So all the things that you would do to change, your risk of dying of a heart attack are the exact same things you would do to change your risk of dying of diabetes, dying of cancer, dying of a stroke, like, so why not do them? Plus they're going to make you more energetic, you're going to look better, you're going to lose weight. Like all these lifestyle related things are, they really are the fountain of youth, so like if it takes a bad heart scan score to get you motivated to make some of these changes, God bless it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with it. I'm with you on that. And we'll see how I react when I get the score. But I know I've adjusted before and I'll adjust again, because one thing I've really learned for me personally is it's all about energy. How much I have, so much I want to get done.
Hmm.
I'm past the halfway point in my life.
Yep.
No matter when it is, it might be, it's just the way it is.
Yep.
So if I only have so much time left and I'm getting older and it's going to take more out of me to do those things, how do I get the best energy to get those things done?
Yep.
That's how I look at it. That's my measuring stick. What's energy going to do? What's it going to do to my energy tomorrow if I do this? That's how I think about things. And I don't know. We all know we're not going to escape death. So
Hmm.
I don't understand why that's not a bigger motivator for people as they get older. Times, the clock's ticking, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
Yep.
and-
No. And how the last few decades of your life play out usually is massively affected by their lifestyle choices. So how your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and hopefully 90s are going to go. I mean, it is a marked, massive difference in the last 25 years of your life, dependent upon what you're doing with your lifestyle.
Yep, I agree. See, sold, Ben. You got me going.
Yeah.
You got me
Yeah.
thinking.
Nope. You do great. You're great. I think you do a lot of things really, really well. So
Well, I will report back, and when I get it. So we'll talk about it. So cool.
Yep.
All right. We're heading into spring. We're getting over the time change. Anything else? Any other words of wisdom or rants that you want to go on for this week?
I thought I might talk about fiber, but I don't know. I got I got a lot of things on my mind. I got a lot of things on my mind.
Oh man. Margot loves these segments. She keeps saying, "Well, ask him this, ask Ben this, ask Ben that," because she's really, as part of our commitment to eat better, is we made a bigger commitment to making things here rather than eating out. And eating out is fun and it's tasty and stuff, but you just have no control. And so we've become like the hot pot king and queen because you can really plan things out and it makes a huge difference. So.
No, I think that's great. That's a wise statement,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's her. I ain't that wise. She is. But don't tell her I said that. Sometimes your kids surprise you, right, Ben?
Right. No, they do. Yeah. Sometimes they become a better version of you, right?
Right.
So.
I hope so. Well, you have a great week. We look forward to talking to you next week. Will be another weekend. Maybe we can fiber will be our kickoff next week since we're leaving it there. And
yes.
go from there.
Yes. Okay. Perfect.
All right. Can
Thanks,
never go
Jack.
wrong
Have a
with
good
that.
weekend.
Thank you too. See ya. Bye.
Bye.